Listen closely. That sound is not wind. It's the rotors of dozens of drones circling in the dark sky above a port that Russia has held for 4 years. And the men flying them used to live in that city. Some of them fought for it, bled for it, watched friends die defending it. Now they're back. This is the Azov Brigade, and they just declared a war that could take 20 years. Welcome back. 4 years ago, the world watched in horror as Mariupol fell. A siege so brutal, the Red Cross called the conditions apocalyptic. The Azov regiment made its final stand inside the Azovstal steel plant, surrounded, starving, and ultimately captured. Hundreds taken prisoner, the city reduced to rubble. For most of the world, that was the end of the story, a defeated city, a finished chapter. One more name added to the long list of places the war had already decided. It wasn't, because the soldiers who survived that siege never stopped planning. And this week, footage emerged showing exactly what 4 years of planning looks like. Drones, dozens of them, flying low and precise over Mariupol's strategically vital seaport. Not random strikes, calculated ones, confirmed targets, electrical substations, repair facilities, sanctioned vessels docked at the harbor. This is the newly reconstituted Azov Corps, and they are not improvising. Let's establish exactly what happened, because the precision here matters more than the explosions. According to a Reuters source report, the unit launched a wave of drone strikes on the port last week. The operation successfully knocked out electrical substations and struck repair facilities. This isn't symbolic revenge. This is targeted economic warfare against the machinery that keeps occupied Mariupol. Functioning as a Russian logistics hub, Colonel Arsen Dmitrik, Chief of Staff of the 1st Azov Corps, confirmed to Reuters, "This is a long-term campaign, not a single operation." His exact words, "Even if it takes 20 years, they will spend 20 years planning, waiting, and preparing." That is not the language of a quick raid. That's the language of a siege in reverse. And there's a brutal symmetry in that. In 2022, it was Russian forces that besieged Mariupol for months, cutting off food, water, and power until the city broke. Now it's Azov drones doing something structurally similar in reverse, methodically cutting off the electrical grid and repair capacity that keeps the occupied port functioning. The roles have inverted, the patience has not. So who's actually behind the controls, and why is this campaign expanding right now? This is where the story connects to something much larger than one port city. The Azov Corps has formed a dedicated drone regiment, codenamed Pilum. According to Ukraine's general staff, this unit is establishing what they call an exclusion zone over Mariupol, patrolling the city's own airspace from above, denying Russian forces freedom of movement they've had for 4 years. And the targeting philosophy is deliberate. Every operation, according to commanders, is calculated thousands of times over to ensure strikes hit only the enemy or his resources. Substations, repair facilities, sanctioned ships, nothing else. This matters because it tells you something about Ukrainian strategy in 2026. This isn't chaos, it's attrition engineered with precision. Military analyst Franz Stefan Gatti from the Center for a New American Security described these operations to Reuters using one specific phrase: cumulative, not decisive. No single strike ends the war, but layer enough of them, substation by substation, ship by ship, and you force the Russian military into longer, costlier, slower supply routes. You bleed efficiency out of an entire occupied region. And Mariupol's port is not an isolated target. It's one node in a campaign now stretching across the entire southern front. Robert Brovdy, commander of Ukraine's drone forces, the same commander who reacted to the Moscow refinery strikes, confirmed to Reuters his intention to isolate Crimea in the near future by hitting key transport corridors. The brigade, known as Nemesis, formed by civilian volunteers with prior military experience, is already operating along the M14 highway, the critical road link between occupied Mariupol and Crimea. Other Ukrainian units are striking fuel and supply trucks across the southern front. According to Kyiv Post reporting, a combined force of only 5,000 to 8,000 drone operators is now directly affecting an estimated 250,000 to 300,000 Russian soldiers across an occupied area roughly the size of Belgium. Think about that ratio. Fewer than 10,000 people, reshaping the logistics of an entire army. To put that in perspective, Russia's full invasion force inside Ukraine has historically numbered in the hundreds of thousands. A drone corps smaller than the population of a single neighborhood is now forcing that force into longer convoy routes, slower fuel deliveries, and constant repair cycles. This is not a battlefield advantage measured in captured kilometers. It's measured in the accumulated cost of friction. Hours lost, fuel burned, equipment degraded day after day with no end date attached. This is the same pattern we've tracked before: refineries in Moscow, bridges in Crimea, fuel depots in Rostov. Now add Mariupol's port to that list. Different city, same machine, same method of slow surgical dismantling. What makes this campaign different from earlier phases of the war is the geography. Mariupol sits deep behind Russian lines, far from any active front. For years, that distance made it feel permanently secured. A captured prize, fully digested into Russian-controlled territory. These strikes prove otherwise. No occupied city, however deep behind the front, is actually beyond reach anymore. That single fact changes how Russia has to allocate its already stretched air defenses. But for the men flying these drones, this isn't only strategy, it's personal. One Azov fighter put it simply: more than 700 of their men remain in Russian captivity. Comrades were killed defending the city. And ultimately, he said, this is about their country. That's not a slogan for a press release. That's the actual motivation keeping a unit in the field for what could be decades. Here's what stays with me about this story. Most wars are remembered by their dramatic turning points: the battles, the sieges, the surrenders. Mariupol's fall in 2022 was exactly that kind of moment. Brutal, visible, final. But what's happening now is the opposite kind of warfare. Quiet, incremental, measured in substations and repair facilities rather than territory. And that's precisely why it's dangerous to underestimate. Colonel Dmitryk's words deserve repeating because they tell you everything about how this phase of the war will actually end. Not with a single decisive battle, with 20 years of patience, if that's what it takes. It's worth remembering what those words are actually replacing. 4 years ago, the same men were trapped underground, rationing food, waiting for a rescue that never came. The world watched them surrender and largely assumed that chapter was closed. Instead, captivity and loss became the foundation of a new kind of campaign, one built not on holding ground but on making occupation itself unsustainable, one substation at a time. The same soldiers who once made their final stand inside a burning steel plant are now circling that same city from above, waiting, calculating, and preparing for a fight they believe they will eventually win. Mariupol remains today a heavily contested battleground, far behind the current front line, but never out of reach. And somewhere above that port tonight, the drones are still circling.